It was supposed to be just a normal walk on the trail. When they went to go pick them up a couple hours later, they never showed up.
I think the part that really struck a nerve is when we're told that this is part of a criminal investigation. A crime has been committed.
I couldn't go outside of the house without having a panic attack.
As early as February 15th, the police found a Snapchat picture taken by Libby on the trail. In the distance, there's a creepy man following them.
There's this fear that they're walking around every day and they're seeing this person.
What do you think of when you think of evil? A mad doctor experimenting on his patients? What about a man with a hidden face waiting in the woods to kill your children? Tragically, this is what happened to Abigail Williams and Liberty German in February 2017. They were hiking in Delphi, Indiana, when they suddenly disappeared. But a man Liberty accidentally photographed revealed some terrifying clues. If you're ready for it, let's dive into the case of the girls whose last Snapchat footage showed their murderer. Today's story begins in Delphi, Indiana. This peaceful town has a population of under 3,000 people, and it's known for its beautiful heritage, its forests, and a canal that once bound together the regions of Indiana. This was the hometown of best friends Abigail Williams and Liberty German. They grew up together in an environment that seemed as safe as it gets.
I think in 2017, Delphi was the safest place any of us felt like we could be. We would leave our doors unlocked, we didn't have security systems.
No one in Delphi seemed to even have the concept of being on the lookout for danger. The whole town was just one big community.
You know, this is where you go visit grandma and grandpa, your uncle, small businesses, restaurants, a great community to raise a family.
And it seemed like it, at least for Abby and Liberty. They grew up with their loving families, and soon they became inseparable.
She loved helping other people, being around, assisting her nieces, playing games and drawing and art and being creative.
By the time she was 13 in 2007, Abby played the piano and the saxophone. Libby, on the other hand, was the more fearless, sporty type.
She was very giving, very stick up for the underdog.
We were inseparable, we were always together. We pretty much did everything together.
On February 13th, 2017, Abby was 13 and Liberty was 14. It was a beautiful day. There was no school, and a lot of kids were outside walking, chatting, or playing. Soon enough, Libby chatted to Abby, and they decided to meet up and walk down to the famous park trailers around town.
I was getting ready for work, and Libby busts open the bathroom door, as in just sitting there, getting ready, and she says, "Hey, can we go to Highwards today?" The moment I dropped them off, Libby got out of the car and turned around and told me she loved me.
Those were Libby's last words to her sister. At around 1:30 p.m. that day, the girls started hiking on the Monon High Bridge over Deer Creek. Half an hour later, Libby posted a photo of Abby walking down the bridge.
It was supposed to be just a normal walk on the trail. When they went to go pick them up a couple hours later, they never showed up.
Abby and Libby were supposed to meet Libby's dad at 3:15 p.m. He was going to drive them home, but they weren't at the meeting point, and they weren't answering their phones either.
Becky tried to call and wasn't getting any response, so she called me probably about 4 o'clock or so in the afternoon, and she said, "Hey, we're not getting can't get a hold of Libby." I said, "All right, let me pack up here and I'll head that way."
Libby's dad went around the trail and walked down every path, thinking Libby's gonna be grounded for fooling around like this. In fact, both girls' families were convinced that they were just being silly or forgetful, and were planning to tell them off for doing so.
We didn't think the worst. We didn't nowhere near think the worst.
However, Libby's dad was quick to call the police. After all, his daughter was missing, and there was no sign from either of them. But the local police and community searched through the whole trail, only to find nothing. The search for Abby and Libby continued through the night. People were hopeful, and the running theory was that the two girls got lost in the woods or fell down a crevice, and would be rescued. But around noon on February 14th, their bodies were found.
I had a friend that ran up to me and said her husband called her and that they found the girls, but she wouldn't say anything more. So we got to the trailhead and I ran up to a fireman and said, you need to take me to Libby. She's been out all night. She's gonna need me. I saw the coroner's van go by. And that's when it hit.
Libby and Abby's families were devastated. What had happened? Had they climbed somewhere and slipped? That's when it got darker. The police declared the deaths of Abby and Libby to be a murder investigation.
I think the part that really struck a nerve is when we're told that this is part of a criminal investigation. A crime has been committed.
What sort of monster would take the lives of 2 teenage girls? Even more worrying for a peaceful town like Delphi, he did it in broad daylight, and no one even found the bodies until the next day. People were in shock, terrified of the killer striking again, and desperate to find him.
I couldn't go outside of the house without having a panic attack.
The girls' families couldn't continue their lives as they knew them.
It affects us hard, as a family. I didn't sleep for a long time.
You worry about them dating and driving and going to college, not going out for a walk on a beautiful February afternoon.
Even the police were affected. Something as horrible as this simply didn't happen in Delphi.
Why Libby? Why Abby? Somebody knows. And if you're watching, we'll find you.
As early as February 15th, the police found a Snapchat picture taken by Libby on the trail. In the distance, there's a creepy man following them. Did Libby photograph this man on purpose, or was it an accident, as she was really taking a snapshot of the scenery? But the police soon discovered there was also a recording that Libby took of him.
And before long, you actually hear his voice.
As you might have guessed, this made the case gain nationwide attention.
Here he is, Delphi. Here he is, community. Here he is, America. That's the guy. Can you find the guy?
Indeed, the police thought that with a picture and a recording of his voice, there was no way the killer wouldn't be caught within a few days. The people of Indiana had taken a good look at Libby's picture. More clues should be coming soon. Everyone was sure.
Hear that person's voice. It's creepy.
Kind of puts chills down your spine.
And they released a sketch of the suspect.
But no arrests were made to this day. In 2019, 2 years after Abby and Libby's deaths, the police released the video of the killer walking behind the girls.
There's no one on the planet that wants to go to them more than me and say, we finally did it.
In 2019, 2 years after Abby and Libby's deaths, the police released the video of the killer walking behind the girls. Until then, the public only had his picture and the recording. Eventually, the sketch was updated to match the details of the man in the video recording, as well as the description that someone gave for a hiker walking alone on the trails at the same time of the girl's disappearance. The two pretty different sketches caused speculation and confusion worldwide. Were the police looking at two suspects, or did they simply get new details and scratched the first sketch?
Are there two suspects that you're looking for?
There are not. I saw some coverage tonight where I saw Becky Patty was interviewed back in 2019 when that was done, she said tonight it was like a gut punch, and I felt that gut punch tonight because I would never ever intentionally cause that to happen.
Once again, no arrests were made, but the Indiana police never gave up on the case. In fact, even the FBI got involved.
Our investment in that investigation has been and continues to be significant.
Abby and Libby's case made the headlines again in February 2022. Investigators want to speak to anyone who may have communicated with, met, or attempted to meet a man named Keegan Klein. Apparently, Klein had created a fake Instagram profile that was active in 2016 and 2017 with the name Anthony_shots. He'd used images of a male model to attract young teenage girls and convince them to send him nude pictures as well as their home address. Klein was charged with child exploitation and for the time being, it's unknown whether Abby or Libby communicated with the fake Anthony Schatz online.
Do you think it's possible that your sister and Abby were communicating with this account?
I think that the account is definitely important and that we have to keep sharing it and putting it out there because for whatever reason, law enforcement thinks it's important.
The police are confident they're getting closer to the killer every day. Meanwhile, dozens of tips come forth every single week.
I still get between probably 25 and 40 direct tips a week right here, literally from around the world.
But the police have to sift through them carefully.
Biggest evidence in this case comes from Libby German's cell phone. That grainy image of a man on the High Bridge and an audio recording that the 14-year-old had the forethought to take, even in the face of danger. Hundreds, if not thousands of tips have poured in from social media.
But these tips can hurt the case as much as they can help it. On social media, people take matters into their own hands and post opinions more than facts. This makes the work even harder for the investigators.
I think when people start doing their own investigation and start comparing what they think, that creates problems. We ask them not to do that. There are a lot of people that look like the sketches that we've released. And then when you blow that out there with a picture of somebody that they think next to a sketch, imagine what it does to that person if they're not involved at all.
But as time passes and the killer isn't found, people around the world get even more involved online.
I think the web sleuths out there are baffled by this case because on the surface, it appears like the police have a lot, right? We have the suspect's voice, we have video for the alleged suspect, and yet here we are 5 years later talking on the anniversary, and there's still no one that's been charged with the murder of Libby and Abby.
Indeed, no one has been arrested or charged with the murder of Abby or Libby to this day. But unlike many other cases where the interest dies out about a year or two after no action, Abby and Libby's case only seems to catch fire. Detective Doug Carter actually gets more confident every single day as he's waiting for the tips to come to an end.
We're closer every day. We're closer every single day. The tips keep coming. And once that comes in, and once that completes itself, then we're going to have to assign another 60 or 80 detectives to this and go back through every single lead that we've ever gotten.
As of 2022, it appears as if the police have many more details than they're revealing, including a 43-second video that was taken at the time of the girl's disappearance. Carter was asked, why not release all these details to the public?
It's important that we don't show our hand, quite frankly. We're not going to explain what we know about the killer. We're not going to explain some of the intricate details of the death of Abby and Libby.
Indeed, it's pretty likely that Abby and Libby's killer is watching the news, perhaps even their families. It's a fact, but a very creepy thought that most child killers are people their families know, neighbors, people from their schools, or even relatives. The thought that Abby and Libby's murderer is still walking freely in Delphi or is even someone the families know scares the whole community.
But they definitely said they are afraid and there's fear that when this is ultimately solved, they are gonna know who this person is. And because it's such a small community, you know, it's just a couple, 3,000 people, there's this fear that they're walking around every day and they're seeing this person.
As Abby and Libby's families prepare to find out who the killer is, they also spend a lot of time raising awareness about the case and making sure Delphi is a safe place to raise your kids.
You're outside. You do stuff outside. That's what we have. So the trails is kind of what Delphi has.
Abby and Libby's case is a deeply tragic story and a scary one for the Delphi community. But it's one of the few cases that have gathered no dust as time passes. The police are getting more and more confident, and the internet is waiting eagerly to hear more updates. And that's the truly upsetting case of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Anna Solves. Hey, don't be shy, give this video a like and subscribe, and if you can take it, why not check out the other disturbing cases? Have a good night, stay safe, and take care of each other. It's scary out there.